YouTube, Kamen Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Revice Episode 3. So, this episode had a lot to do with Iki's brother and sort of his feelings on the situation, because at the very beginning of the episode, he's kind of talking to his mom about his feelings on the situation, about how Iki could transform and he couldn't, and that's kind of a major theme throughout the episode. Meanwhile, while that's going on, there's this weird little mini-C subplot about these, like, people trying to buy the bathhouse because they want to build, like, a mall or something, and it's kind of played to comedic effect, and they only really have it for a couple funny scenes at the beginning, and then it's never brought up again. I imagine it'll be brought up again next week or something. It was just kind of a weird plot. And then the Monster of the Week situation revolves around Iki's sister's friend, and she gets kidnapped by this guy that they think is the one that holds the contract with the stamp, and he's got, what was it, the elephant? Not elephant stamp, that's a different one. That's the gorilla stamp or something, and it turns out at the end that it's not. It's a big twist, but that's kind of the thing revolving around the episode, and, like, this girl's sister's, like, famous or something, and the mom's, like, really invested in her, but not her, and, like, when they're kidnapped, he's like, I want you to call and ask for a ransom or something, and she's like, well, she didn't even answer because she's busy. I'm like, well, yeah, because you don't matter. You're a filler character, even though she's going to be in next week, but that's basically, like, the filler plot of the week, and the sister and her friend get kidnapped, so Iki and the brother are trying to save them. And it's funny because, like, at one point Iki's rushing into the fight in, like, a civilian fight. I'm like, why isn't he transforming? And then I forgot he doesn't have the driver anymore. But he fights for a little bit in the double form. He tries to use the hawk form to take some of the henchmen out. But then the dead mans come out and they say, look, we'll give you your sister and the friend back if you give us your stamps. And then his brother runs off and he goes back to the base and he gets a couple stamps to use and distract them. And he finds this driver and he's like, can I use this? And they make it seem like he's going to show up on the scene with it, but he doesn't. When he shows up, he offers them one stamp and he gets knocked down, and then he gives the other stamp to his brother, and that is the stamp we use, which is a Mammoth Deno form. And I think that this is my favorite my favorite form so far. It looks really cool. I've really dug the way the forms look so far. Like, it's got pretty decent, like, subtle nods to the way the rider looks. Like, you can clearly tell what it is, but it's not overwhelming it. But they merge it with the creature in a cool way. And this one just looks really cool to me. It's really simple. The sort of, you know, triangular visors for red visors for Deno just work really well. And then he's got freaking mammoth tusk boomerangs. It's just really awesome. I really liked it a lot. The sort of animal remix form is a little bit weird. Just, you know, they're all kind of weird, but this one was one of the weirder ones. But still, the forms in general, I think, is my favorite combo form of those two so far. And they fight off with that, and again, we think we've solved it, and we think it was the guy that did it, but it actually wasn't him that was holding the contract, and it's this other mysterious lady at the end, which is kind of a nice twist on the sort of the week, of the 2 weeks type of story we got going. And then they flash back eventually to his brother when he asked for the driver, and they're like, well, of course you can't use it. You couldn't even transform into Revi earlier. We're not going to let you use it. This isn't a place for your family matters, Urkel. And they leave it off at that, although the scientist guy that made the driver, whose name I haven't learned yet, probably never will if we're being honest, he does give him kind of an interesting look when that's all said. Because, like, he says no, and then the CEO guy's like, well, of course you can't, you're a loser, or whatever. And, you know, you can see him looking disappointed, but then the scientist guy gives him kind of a look. But they're clearly setting up his brother to become some sort of rider at some point in the series. Whether it's in the near future or the far future, it's definitely giving me Kagami vibes. Also, Go was his name in O's that trained to be the new birth. So I don't know whether it's going to end up being an antagonist situation where he's maybe pitted against his brother or not, but he's definitely going to suit up at some point. I mean, at the end when Iki's being thanked, you know, he clearly has jealousy, maybe a little resentment. There's definitely something interesting brewing there, and that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it, I think, and it's a nice little character story to plant the seeds of so far. And yeah, this was a solid episode. It wasn't knocking my socks off or anything. In a way, it was almost like a par for the course part 1. It was kind of weird because it seemed resolved, but then I did kind of like the twist that it wasn't what you thought it was, so it was just kind of a decent-ish basic episode as far as kind of a structure, but it set a couple things up, which was nice, and I really enjoyed the Deno form and the fight scene with it. So yeah, solid episode. I would give it a 3 out of 5. I'm still enjoying the show quite a bit so far. Much more than I was Saber early on. But what do you guys think of the show so far? What do you think of the Deno Mammoth form? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Kamen Rider, signing out.